That sounds good. I could unmute everybody, but if we get a lot of interference, I'll have to start muting people. So
I think you can just let people unmute themselves when they want to have something to say.
we'll try that. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, however works.
Okay. Well, Mike, I don't know how many people we have represented, but or how many districts are represented. But I'd say go ahead and start when you are ready.
Okay.
Or when you decide you want to be ready. We are
Well,
recording.
We are recording, just so you're aware. Let's start because we said 6 o'clock. We start at 6 and we get through. So welcome everybody who's out there. Hi, Dottie. We see you popping in to look at us. We appreciate you taking a little time this evening. You may or may not know, but in the past, we've done district leadership training meetings, usually in the summer at a resort, and we have a nice dinner and a get-together and go over a bunch of topics. And of course, with this year being this year, we didn't do that. So we're trying to do a few occasional leadership meetings just to try to keep the state leadership informed of what's going on, as well as share with you ideas that, and you can share with us ideas about how we can help the Utah Dental Association grow and develop. So that's kind of our goal. And Val has said that if you'd like to speak or have something to say, just unmute yourself when we have discussions or whatever it may be. So each of you should have received an agenda from Val, and we always appreciate Val and Dottie and Becky for all that they do. They pretty much guide the ship, and the rest of us jump in and do occasionally for their first. I don't know. I think it would be a little cumbersome to do introductions. We're not all, can't participate that way. So we won't go around and introduce each other, but we do appreciate those of you that have taken the time to be with us. As you know, Val has sent out some, and Dottie has sent out agendas, a calendaring for CQIs. That's our first agenda item. As you are aware, we typically have done live CQI events where we've come to your region and usually had a meal and presentations. And we want to do the same this year, but we realize there's some logistical challenges with some of the larger districts. I know that Val has been in touch with some of you about how we may overcome the challenges that we face in CQIs. Val, where are we with some of those CQI opportunities?
I think partly we want to discuss a little bit tonight. We've had some report that they don't think they can hold there's not going to be a venue large enough to hold their meeting. So we've kind of tried to come up with a hybrid. I think we're going to try to do an in-person meeting in that area for those who feel comfortable enough to attend. We will probably we're planning to work out a situation where we can also create a Zoom meeting, a live Zoom meeting at the same time, and be able to broadcast it to those other members of the district who didn't feel comfortable attending or couldn't attend, but yet wanted to be, could be like Kay, they could be in Minnesota, but they wanted to attend. And so I think we're going to work out an option to do that. So we're going to have an in-person meeting, but a hybrid, and try to broadcast it out. Logan came up with or Cache District came up with a interesting idea of having theirs outdoors at a park. I don't know whether we'll be able to have internet or anything else to do that one in a virtual setting. So that might be, if you attend that one, you might have to be there live. But I think some like Weber and some of the others that had thought about doing virtual, I still haven't got back with them, but I think we want to try to lean more towards a hybrid of some sort. and still be able to kind of cover both bases. The people that would be there live would be able to interact with the speakers, ask their questions directly. Those that are attending by virtually are going to have a little bit harder time asking questions and everything else, because we may or may not be able to have somebody actually monitor that. I'm kind of working with the ADA to see if they've got a system that will work with us a little bit on that. But if you're in person, you'll get a certificate directly. If you're doing it virtually, we're going to have to figure out a way for you to register or do something so you can get your certificate later. So some of those things is what we're trying to work out. But generally speaking, I think we're still trying to hold a CQI of some resemblance of what we've done in the past with these hybrid modifications. Does that explain it well enough?
I think so. I think we thought or felt like we wanted to try to do it and not just can it or do it all about virtually, just because we enjoy getting out and seeing the dentists in their region and getting to know them. I know here in the Uinta Basin, we just love to have visitors. We get, it's nice to have colleagues come see us. And so I think we want to try to do that. As we're having this conversation, does anybody have concern or suggestions that they might share with us right now as we consider CQIs either throughout the state or in your region particularly?
Hi, this is Darren Goring. I'm with the North Salt Lake District. My only concern is that maybe I'd have to look up the specifics, but isn't there a limit right now of the number of people in a mass gathering to only 50 or something like that?
Yeah, I'm going to take that if you don't mind, Mike.
Sure.
I think the Salt Lake districts are going to be our biggest challenge. Provo's the next, and then kind of trickle on down there, Weber, and as for size. And so, yes, I can't say that all those kinks are worked out. So if you have any ideas, Rich Fisher had mentioned that maybe possibly trying to break off and do North District a little different time than doing South District, which would help a little bit, but we still might be limited to 50 people who could attend. So do we make it first 50 people that sign up to be live, they can come to whatever facility we can create, and everyone else has got to be virtual? Some of those questions still have yet to be fully answered. If you've got any ideas or suggestions or hope for your district in that regard, Dave Roberts, I saw is on the call. We got the same thing, I think, for South Salt Lake District.
Yeah.
And so if you've got some suggestions and some ideas, I'd love to hear them.
We were emailing back between us in the North District, and yeah, at least one thing to help with it, we were talking about maybe splitting the North and the South, because it is a pretty large number of dentists in both of those. But the idea of having maybe like a first come first serve for signing up for it might be a good route to go with it, to try and still do a physical and then doing additional Zoom for the virtual aspect of it.
I do believe we've talked to Mike, and Mike, you can pipe in if you want. I talked to Mike and those other speakers that will be coming, and we've still yet to sit down and figure out another time or date where we can get that group together to be able to split the North and South adequately. So I think it's a little easier to do because most of them are in the Salt Lake vicinity, but we've got to nail down that date. I suspect somewhere end of October and into mid-November maybe.
That would be that's the biggest thing, is scheduling. We're pretty tight throughout the state doing that, and we'll just need to get another date that will work for everybody.
Isn't Salt Lake kind of towards the end of the year? So you can kind of see where things planned and make your final decisions once more information is on the table.
Yeah, we'd like to make plans as soon as possible, but reality is reality. We got to wait and see what's available.
Well, and we also understand we need to be adaptive. Things change on a regular basis. And so we're going to have to make a plan and yet be able to adapt as necessary. We feel like we've got good presentations and speakers. We feel like it's going to be a good meeting. Just if we can get the logistics worked out and have everybody participate with us. Anybody else have questions or concerns about CQI at this point in time? Good. We're okay. All right, moving through the agenda then. Future district meetings and elections. I assume that means as we're looking at doing these leadership training meetings, we've been kind of looking at doing them quarterly. That would mean we would be looking at, somebody do the math, August, December sometime. Of course, we're just going to finish up with CQIs. Val, maybe we look at the first of the year. Did we look at that?
I do think December, early January is probably early January would probably be the best time for another one. And then we hope to do the leadership conference in St. George end of February. So maybe early December, maybe be a little bit better spacing out than maybe January.
Okay. I'm just looking through my notes because I thought I'd written something down that way, but yeah, I think
I couldn't find a date that we had picked.
Let's see. We looked at August, November, and February. So yeah, end of November, 1st of December, somewhere in there would be the appropriate time to do another one of these Zoom leadership conferences. We will. Thursday. How about maybe we look at the 3rd of December.
Let's we'll get the calendars out and we'll kind of look, and then we'll get it
okay,
out.
I'll put down 3rd of December as our tentative date, and then we can adjust as necessary. And when time allows, we'll get the word out. Elections for your districts. I know most of those take place involving CQI. So you want to be planned to move forward with that. One thing we've talked a little bit about, and I think Brent may cover a little bit of this as well, is we want to have a good rotation, a good flow, if you will, between the district leadership, so that, for example, in the UDA, we have a president-elect, secretary, and treasurer, and so you've got 3 or 4 years to educate yourself a little bit in the program before you serve as the president. And we'd hope that each district has, or will try to have, that kind of leadership schedule that will allow for future leaders. Obviously there's responsibilities that Brent's going to talk about and time commitments. Although it's not huge, there is a time commitment and responsibilities involved in these positions. And those that are elected or coerced or voted in because they didn't come to the meeting, however it happens, need to be aware that, yes, there are some commitments that we would like them to fulfill as they work in the districts with Utah Dental Association. So we just encourage you to look at your districts, see how that's been done, and if we need to make a modification somewhere to try to streamline that we'd appreciate you doing that. Any questions or concerns with that? Okay, governance and structure. I think we talked about that just a little bit. Filling the district presidency for the future. We want a good leadership train. Obviously, the leaderships of the districts become the leadership of the Utah Dental Association, and there has been some challenge in getting individuals to want to run for offices in the UDA, and we want to have a good train or pipeline of leadership so that the UDA is well staffed and leadership is covered throughout the entire state over time. And so work in your districts. And then, of course, as always, if any of you have interest in serving in the Utah Dental Association in any capacity, we would love to have volunteers, and we can use those names either for leadership or other special interests that come up where we may need a specialized board or governing body. So questions or concerns about future leadership possibilities? All right, Val, I'll let you take that state efforts to balance the budget and cut the cuts on dental clinics.
Well, I think that originally that was put on there just mostly so everyone was aware that the state is looking at all kinds of ways to cut the budget. Legislative session's coming up again, and there's several things on the chopping block. In one of them is actually Medicaid actually going back to being run by the state instead of two managed care companies. Some think that's going to get thrown out real quick because the insurance companies have too much lobbying going on to get that one pulled. But we'll see. That ought to happen, I think, later this month. But by the end of October, I believe the dental clinics that have kind of been a safety net for the underserved, the majority of them are all closing. I think there's 5 total in the state. I'm not up to that snuff exactly on all their details, but I think the one in Salt Lake is the last on the chopping block, and they expect to be closed by October. So the funding for those safety net clinics is gone, and so that means it probably falls back a little bit more onto the dentists in their own personal dental office to kind of try to help the underserved. So.
Val, as I've researched this, it sounds like they're gonna encourage a lot of these patients to go to the U of U dental school. So I was going to say, going to be their safety net.
Mark reached out. I think Mark's with us. He reached out and said that the U of U was in talks to kind of help absorb that. Mark, could you brief us on that?
Yes, that's my understanding. I don't know a lot of details about it, but I believe that Glenn Hansen that's on his radar. Just how that'll shape, how that'll fall out, I'm not sure at this point, but it is on their radar, and it's something that that they're going to look into.
Mark, do you know if the state's going to give the U of U some extra funds to be able to help with this, or are they just expecting the U of U to?
I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I know things are tight all the way around, and the way Glenn was talking, part of the reason for them shutting down the clinics that they did is they were just losing so much so fast. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I think that's part of the plan, is to have the dental schools absorb some of that.
Right. So at least there's talks in trying to find a way to help those that are in that population. So it's good to be aware.
One of the things that the school is very, very sensitive to is not wanting to, they don't want to be a competitor in the marketplace. They want to be in a position to help and absorb those that maybe wouldn't get care otherwise. So that's kind of their posture.
Very good. Okay, any questions or concerns with that issue? So I think I'm good at that point. So Brent, will turn time to you for your presentation.
All righty. Well, Mike and Bill, I knew of your example, so I got my hair cut today so that I wouldn't look too shaggy coming in here. But and I hope on that our public health, our state recognizes how decimated they have made our public health dental system. They've cut the dental health director, the state dental director from full-time to 25%. They've closed all the clinics, the public health clinics. They've really kind of decimated the dental public health program. So that may be something we want to write a letter about. Maybe we can talk about that another time. But let me get started on my presentation here. We appreciate all of you all accepting the responsibility to be presidents or officers or leaders in your district. And it's actually a wonderful opportunity, and the Dental Association needs you, and it's a great opportunity. I came across these principles of leadership a couple of years ago, and I've really gone back to these many times. But if you can look at these principles of leadership and absorb these and utilize them, you will be an effective leader in almost any position where you find yourself. These came from Neil Patel, who's a co-founder of a leadership group, and he's an attorney who was the chief policy advisor for Dick Cheney, and he worked under President Bush, and he's been up in the hierarchy of our policy in the country. But these were things he thought were the most important in a good leader. And I think it's good to review these kind of qualities. And there are a couple of things we should go over. But one of the things you need to do as a district president or officer is exhibit passion and appreciate what you have and love what you do. And I don't think there are too many of us who can look at our profession and think our profession is lacking. I mean, certainly there are always things that could be better, but we have one of the best jobs in the country, in the world. It's good to know know yourself and to have strong values that guide you, to be, to know, and to do. So have strong values that guide you, to understand your organization and your responsibilities. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute here. And then to be a doer, to execute the ideas that you have and that you come up with. One of the key things for being a good leader is to choose a good team. If you try to do this job yourself, you'll be less effective and it will not be as enjoyable. You want to look for people who are passionate and people who are responsible. Typically in the past, we've had district meetings and we've had, asked for volunteers and people who might be interested in serving. And with this COVID deal, that's not going to work out. We're going to have to identify people. And this will be one of your things that you should be thinking of. You're going to need to identify people and you're going to need to contact them and ask them if they're willing to serve in your district association. And that can be the way that we can kind of create sort of a train of people coming up through the seats who are then taking over, and we can change responsibilities. But I know in my own situation, when someone asks me if I'll do something, it's kind of an honor to be asked, especially if it's from somebody who you respect. And I always think about it. And if it's just not the right time, then people can tell you that. But I think you're much more likely to get a positive response if you contact people and ask them to help and tell them, that they're needed and that you've thought about who the best person in this job could be, and they're the one who came to the forefront. So I think that's going to be a real secret for you, is to try and choose a team of at least a couple of other people to work with you in your position of leadership in the district. And if you can have a president-elect and maybe a secretary, then you're going to be in pretty good shape, and you can kind of keep that team going, and you'll have people who you can bounce ideas off and figure things out with, and people who you're going to have at least a crew who are always going to be very supportive of anything you come up with. The next one is to be responsible. You need to delegate, but ultimately you are responsible. The buck stops at you as the district president. And then to be self-motivated. Nothing is going to happen on its own. Always appreciate what other people do, but know that someone has to do something or nothing will happen, and it's sort of up to the president. And then if you can, come up with goals and a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish, and set goals and have a calendar and make plans. And if you calendar things and plan things, they seem to occur. You're the one on the front line, so you need to do what you say you'll do and get it, and just get it done. Now, as the district presidents, your responsibilities, and this is kind of on the agenda, there's a variety of them. You've got membership and recruitment, district meetings, overseeing district funds, assisting your local dental teams. There's a whole host of other ones like community events, legislative issues, mediation issues that come up in your district. Sometimes there are local interviews that to be made. There's offices that have phone calls that need to be fielded. There's Utah Dental Association and UDA, ADA events that are important to support. There's a whole variety of things that come up. I'm going to spend a little more time today on just a couple of these. Overseeing your funds, I'll leave that to Val. Some of the tools at your disposal, I'll leave that to Dottie. But I wanted to talk just a little bit about a couple of these issues. And the first one is membership a little bit. The Dental Association is successful as long as we have people joining our ranks. And it is, in my opinion, if you're going to have a successful profession and we're going to keep things going the way we want, being in the Dental Association is a cost of doing business. I don't think any of us have the luxury of saying we don't need to be involved in influencing our own course and being involved and helping with legislation and helping do things that benefit our communities. But without an association and without an organization, none of those things happen. And then we just have other individuals who set the rules and all the guidelines that we're forced to live by, and we don't like them so well. So I really think if we can communicate to people the benefits of membership and how important they are, everyone should be joining it. Now, those who aren't are just letting other people pay their way for them. And they're just kind of free riding on your back. And although there's always going to be people who do that, I don't know that that's any of our goal is to be someone who's a mooch on everyone else. So I think that's an important thing that we need to communicate to people. Every district should have a goal of increasing membership. That's easier said than done in our society today. And but I think if you can talk about that and target individuals, young dentists, dentists who have not renewed, it's amazing to me how many people, if they haven't renewed and you talk to them, it's like, oh, I forgot I hadn't renewed. It's just kind of an oversight, and they recognize they need to do that. If you can figure out a way to get people together and help create relationships, it will help you in recruitment and retention, and it's going to make your time and effort in your position as a district leader worthwhile and enjoyable. One of the things that's important that we all need to do is focus on making new dentists feel welcome and involving other people in our meetings and our legislative efforts and anything we're involved in. But if you can get people to agree to serve on district committees or in leadership positions or on a board of directors, they'll develop relationships amongst their peers, and they will enjoy their time in dentistry better. And it's amazing to me how often, we get a call in our office from somebody, who says, I'm going out of town. Would you mind covering for us while, any emergencies while we're gone. And whenever I get that phone call, I always, my front office goes, "Do you want to do this?" And I go, "Oh, absolutely." I always feel like that's one of my key successes. If somebody feels comfortable calling me to ask them to cover for them in emergencies, then I feel like, I've made an inroad in a relationship there where, I feel I can talk to them, they can talk to me. And it's so nice when you have your peers that are looking out for each other instead of always just trying to compete with each other. I think it's a one way of succeeding with increasing membership is if we can sort of identify the non-members and see if we can get someone who knows them or is close by in their office or has some kind of connection that could help to fellowship them, invite them to a meeting, just go to lunch with them, just become a professional associate with them. You don't have to become a best friend, but let them know that you care about their success, just like you care about your own success and every other dentist's success. And together, it's really a wonderful, wonderful thing when we have good friends in the profession of people we can reach out to. We've got a whole list of membership tools at our disposal, so you can utilize those. And Dottie's going to talk a little bit about those later. And we've got a benefits of membership document that, if you haven't seen, and I think most of you have, is quite impressive in terms of how much the profession does for us. And gosh, during this last year, it's been a whole nother world with what the Dental Association has done in terms of our getting back to work and how we're now impacted by this COVID deal, and even getting reassigned to a status where we're an essential business. I think was critical. We can always take time out as needed, but we have the ability and the responsibility to safely take care of our patients. Once again, personal contact is the key to enjoying your time as a district president or officer, and it's a key to enjoying our profession. And I really think it's a key to making our association work the way it can. Now, one of the secrets to making things work is getting people together. And typically in the past, we've had our districts have dinners, lunch meetings, continuing education meetings. We've tried to get people together. And I think it would be worth it if we can to try to have a little discussion, and if people can chime in with ideas on what kind of things and how can we calendar things that will help our districts. So if we can go to the calendar idea, the next slide, Val, that'd be great. But what has been successful for you guys in your district in terms of times and days to get people together? Have there been times or days that have worked? And what do you think with this new environment is the best way? Lunch meetings may be tough to do unless you're in a small district, but I still go to lunch with people, a couple of times a week. I see people in the hospital, and we'll go up and sit down and have lunch. But now that's even harder because most cafeterias are closed. So we're eating a lot at least we're eating a lot in our office instead of going out to eat. But what are times? What works in your districts when can we get people together? Is it just evenings, Zooms? What can we do? Any ideas that anybody has in that regard? Times and days to hold meetings. Any thoughts? Can we hold meetings? What do we think about that? Maybe we should go right there first. Can we even hold meetings at this point?
Just to remind, as you say, just to remind anybody that's trying to speak, you either have to physically unmute yourself, or a lot of systems will allow you to hold the space bar down, and that will unmute you temporarily.
I don't think right now is the right time to try and do in-person meetings. Not as a large group, especially. I just can't imagine if the day after the meeting, somebody had to send out a message, hey, found out my assistant was positive for COVID. You've all been around me, and we take out all of the Utah County dentists.
So are our meetings going to be emails? Are they going to be information? Are they going to be some kind of contact? Would be nice. I don't know about you guys, but I was really pleased when I heard about all the masks that were being donated and available through the fire department guys that came down through our district president. That was a great bit of information. Information about, I don't know if there's any ideas, if anybody has on how can we communicate with people? How can we feel like we're in touch? Any ideas? What kind of events can we even consider? Any?
Brent, it's Mike. I think that an email thing is a great idea. It's compile a list of district members and just shoot out an email, whatever information you want to send out to them. You know, encourage them, pass along an article, a news article or a dental article or something, but just have some form of contact with the membership as a whole. There may be opportunity to do things as smaller groups, especially in the smaller districts. A lot of times, you know, we talk a lot about the big districts, but those of us in rural areas, we're small enough that we could do some outdoor things or gather at some point in time. But I really like the idea of a communication via email, or if you're in a smaller district, maybe even texting.
You know, I thought of, we have a fellow in our neighborhood who really likes to get people to get together. And he's set up a 9-hole golf game every Thursday night. And he sends out probably 30 text messages to everybody he can think of in the neighborhood. And he invites everybody to come. And he's gotten between 6 and 12 people every Thursday to go play golf together. And I don't know if something along that line, because that's a small group and there's good social distancing and it's pretty low risk. If something like that, maybe not golf, but I don't know if there are activities or anything that, I don't know. I thought for our neighborhood, it's been kind of a fun thing, but I do think that it's important that we identify, and this is one thing that I thought we should talk a little bit about, is we should identify the new dentists in our districts. The guys who have been in practice for less than a couple of years or 3 years, you know, just not even 10 years. By 10 years, they're pretty ingrained. But I think it would be nice to one-on-one, you know, assign somebody in our district or in our leadership to communicate with those guys, see how they're doing, check in with them, you know, ask them if there's anything that they, you know, if they need any advice in this area or that area, just say they're concerned. And if there's any way they can be of any help, they'll be more than happy to sit down with them and give them any, you know, any tips or any help that they could give. And especially if it's an older dentist who's been in practice for 20 or 30 years, to get a call like that from a guy who's been in practice for 1 or 2 years might be a real boost to somebody. I think it's hard to be all by yourself. And I thought that was something we could do maybe as a district, was just identify new guys and reach out to them and have somebody express concern about how they're doing.
Brent?
Yeah.
If I could just amplify what you said a little bit, I think there has been some districts that have taken a real responsibility or initiative to try and not just contact the new members, but contact any of the members, especially during this COVID time of their district, and just kind of check on them. Just say, hey, you know, we're the district presidency, and we're just checking to make sure you're doing okay. Is there anything we can do for you? I will be honest with you without trying to say anything specific, but we've had a couple of dental suicides in the last several months, and there's some mental health stresses going on out there, and we just might need to identify and maybe even, I'd say, save a life, but really contact and see what everybody's doing, or how everybody's doing. And I know that's maybe a little difficult to do, but I believe there's a need. I can't say that I'd be the best to tell you exactly how to do it, but just having a phone call from somebody that cares might be a big deal.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. And what's the best way to get a hold of people? Do you call and leave a message and then have them call you back? Do you send them a text message and have them call you? I think it's always nice to hear a voice, but if you have a leadership position in your district, it's never out of it's within your purview to call and check on people and see how they're doing, and ask them if they're having any struggles or if anything you could report back to the dental association where we could be of help. And I don't know. I know that I talk to people, dentists probably twice a month at least, where people have this, that, or the other concern, and and express questions, and I can't always answer them, but at least I can look things up for them, and I can express a concern, and I can tell them that I'm happy to help, and I can, maybe I'm not always the best solution, but at least I'm a listening ear, and I think that can be helpful. And if we can't hold regular district meetings, what can we do? And that was the thing that I came up with in my mind, and maybe there's some other ideas of what can we do if we can't hold regular district meetings, because I think we're a ways away from doing that. Any other ideas or suggestions?
Brent, this is Stu Gibby from Weber District. We did when we originally had the shutdown, we did a Zoom call where we did kind of a CE event about prescription of controlled substances. So we had those, the controlled substance database people do a CE event for us. Many of you have probably done the same thing in your districts. I will say this, and then subsequent to that, we've reached out to provide PPE. We've reached out one time just to see how people are doing. All of that was done via email. But I will say nobody, not a single one of everybody ever replied to an email on how are you doing or do you need anything. For the PPE, we got a pretty good response back. And for the CE event that we did, which everybody needs to have, continuing education hours with, for prescription writing, right? So in order to renew for the controlled substance database, you have to have those hours. I think we had maybe 10 or 12 total connections, and 3 of those were the people who were from the presenting company. So not a huge response to anything that we've done to try to reach out. And I think we've tried to communicate over the last few months 4 or 5 times, just haven't had a great response, even though we have been reaching out. So I can tell you email probably is not the best way. My guess is for us, it's going to have to be a personal text message, like one-on-one, and to see if they'll reply to that, because I have not had a great response. And Dr. Matthews can chime in if he has any differences of opinion as far as how things have been going for us up here. But that's what I've seen anyway. So I'll mute myself now.
Well, that's great feedback, because I really think I hate to say it, but that's what I'd sort of anticipate. I know my response to emails is very different than my response to text messages. I get so many spam emails that it just gets to be almost a frustration sometimes, and I'm trying to go through them as fast as I can. And I suspect that other people are similar to that, open an email, get rid of it as fast as I can, and get on to the next one. And so that's why I think one-on-one is. I think you're right. I think that's going to be our best way. And texts are impersonal and easy, but if you can invite someone to call you back, then all of a sudden you've got a personal contact. And if you have 2 or 3 questions that you can just ask them, then the conversation will just flow, and it may be a short, fast, easy one, and it may develop into something more involved. But I think that's great input. So thanks.
I will also ask this too, Dottie. I don't know if it's possible for you, but when we have a new member sign up for our districts, if you wouldn't mind just notifying us somehow, then we can reach out to that person individually. Otherwise, the only other place that we get that to see who the new members are coming in is through the regular, the publication that you guys send out every quarter. So I do try to look at that, but otherwise I don't necessarily know when they come into the district. So if you have another way of notifying us, that'd be great too.
Yeah, I'll start doing that. I haven't been very good at doing that, but I will do that as soon as one comes in.
Thanks, Dottie.
Let me add to that as well. A lot of times you out in the field, so to speak, might recognize that somebody has moved in long before we're ever notified. We don't automatically get any information of a new dentist. It sometimes is real tricky to get. And a lot of times when we've gone to CQIs or whatever in the past and given a members list, I've had the president say, well, we know so-and-so's here and so-and-so's here and so-and-so's here, and they're not on your list. It's because we've never, we didn't know they moved in. So
when I first started, Doppel used to be able to give us a list of all the dentists that came in and got new licenses. Then there became that Privacy Act thing. So they quit doing that. Then we had to rely on the ADA. The ADA is a year behind the new dentists that come out. So they'll graduate, and it's not until a year later I get that list. That's the hard part for me.
What about PIE? Have we used their list of new enrollees to help us there?
That might be a possibility. Kind of depends on who you talk to. At one time, they weren't able to really share all the information they gave me.
They may have a privacy
privacy issue as well, because I know it's hard to swap lists sometimes. It's really hard to get it from Doppel. You have to buy their list, but you have to also present, like I can only get it at convention time when I send them my program saying I'm only going to use it for this, and then they'll give us a list to use one time.
Huh. Well,
we'll work on it though.
But I got to find a way that we can get those new members faster. I just don't know if there's a way, because I'm relying on the ADA to give those to me, and they don't give them to me until a year after they graduate.
Well, I think what we should do in the future is, as you out in the district, so you guys are the ones on the front lines, have different ideas and try different things. We can get reports back at future of these meetings. I think if you haven't already developed kind of a team to work with you, I would encourage all of you to do that, to ask people. And I think as district presidents, if you're the president, you can even appoint people to be in their position. I think if we get in a spot where we can hold an election, then that's first choice. But if there's no elections, we got to have somebody in the position. So am I saying something incorrect, Val? I mean, can they appoint a president-elect if they need to, if they're not having meetings where they can have an election?
Well, there's an ideal world and there's a reality world. So
are you talking bylaws, or are you just talking, or do the best you can?
Well, I think if you appoint somebody, then you can present them to the district and have a virtual election, but you just present a name and have everybody ratify it. And that might cover the bylaw aspect of it. But I think it's going to be kind of difficult to get everybody together and have multiple people on a ballot.
Right.
I mean, we're not meeting.
Right.
So there's got to be some way.
I think for the most part, if you've got a dentist that's willing to serve, I do not think that too many of the rest of the district membership are probably going to oppose
him out.
that.
Because sometimes, like in Uinta Basin, if you're not at that meeting, they vote you in to be the president.
Well, I just look at how it works when we have a nominating committee, and the nominating committee identifies people and asks them if they'll be willing to run, and I think then you have to hold your election in the best way we can. But I think as a district president, you become the nominating committee, or you and your president-elect or whoever, if you've got a couple of people that you work with, you become the nominating committee, and then you can get a core group of people together to help you. And this is a tricky time. So I think we do the best we can. We come up with ideas of occasional this or occasional that, and try to get together in small groups of maybe people who are in proximity with each other, and maybe try to keep it to groups of, I mean, what I've done when I've met with other people is it's just, a few people. It's like under 10, maybe 5 or 6 people. And, we've gotten together and someone said, let's go have lunch. And we do. And it's a pretty small group. But I think that's small things you can do, and one-on-one you can certainly do. So whatever you can come up with, we appreciate. And anything that's successful, we'd love to hear back from you on. So.
Very good.
All righty. I'm going to turn the time over to you, Dottie.
Okay.
Brent, thank you. Thank you, Brent. Let me just interject. Brent, as he went through those leadership values, Brent is an example of a great leader, and I very much appreciate his input and his leadership over the years. So thank you for that presentation, Brent. Okay, Dottie.
Okay, I'll start with that certificate. Val's got a sample. So this certificate, it can be this simple, an email and have them printed out after you do a meeting. The information on the certificate is what DOPL requires on a certificate. So when they're audited, that's the information they're looking for. So it's pretty simple. It can be on like white paper or light pastel colors. We have found that sometimes when they get too fancy and put it on dark paper, when they go to copy that to send it into DOPL, it's really dark and they don't like that part. So they like it on light paper so they can see a copy of that. And then like Brent said earlier, I do have lists available. We get that from the ADA. What we found out during the COVID thing was a lot of dentists that weren't receiving the information have not updated their information on their ADA information page. They still have profile, as they call it. So they have, and sometimes I think if you have your office staff people pay their dues, I think sometimes they will change that email address to the office email address, and so the dentists aren't getting the email address. They will only send out to what's your main, what they call a preferred contact or your preferred mailing address. I noticed a lot of the dentists only have their home addresses on there and don't have an office address. And so when a patient is looking for a new dentist and they type your information, if their office address isn't on there, it won't pull up on the list. So that might be a good way to maybe inform your dentist to update their profiles on the ADA website page. If you do call and get a list from us, I will include emails if you ask for them, but we really ask that you don't share that with anybody else. I get calls from other companies that say, hey, so-and-so sent me this list. Can I get an update with their email addresses on it? Because I have an old list or something, and I can't do that. It was about 3 or 4 years ago, it was voted in the House of Delegates that we not share email addresses. So when I send those with the districts, it's really only for your district use and not for like dental supply companies or something that want to send out information. So if you could just use it for that information. Oh, and if you want a list of your district, like if you want to see who's in your district and maybe we can get rid of some of the dentists that are in your district, all the ADA. So everybody's on. We're kind of clearing up the records. We're trying to clean up some of the records because what we're finding now with 2 dental schools in Utah is it's a lot of these dentists are leaving their old addresses in there, and then they may go practice with a corporate dentistry or something. And if you can't Google them and find them, they will remain in Utah forever unless we have a forwarding address to forward them out of the state. So the ADA will not, all states now are on what they call the ADA Aptify list. Aptify is a program they use to it's like their database. And so that's what all states are using now. So that's what we have to go by, and they won't transfer a dentist out of state unless they have an actual physical address that we can forward them. And I can send you a list. So if you can tell me, I know there's probably some dentists that have retired. And I just don't know all that information unless I am kind of notified on that. Maybe some dentists that are no longer in Utah. Yeah, in fact, all of you should have got a list. I sent all the district officers a list of your current members and non-members, and I put a little information on there of what their last membership was and all that stuff. So if you find somebody that's no longer there, you can get some information for me, especially a forwarding address, and then let me know. We can get that changed. Sometimes they're even in the wrong district, and it's mainly because if you see on the list that there's somebody that may not be in your district, it's because their mailing address shows up as their home address, even though they may practice somewhere else, maybe in your district, but they're having their stuff mailed in their home, which they may live in a different district. So we can look at that kind of stuff.
And cleaning up the records as well. If you find out that Dr. X has left the state and you only know he's in Evanston, Wyoming, if you at least give us that information, we can at least contact the Wyoming executive director and have them try to find the guy in Evanston, and if they can get an address, then they can transfer the records over. But we just had the ADA send us a list of maybe a little less than a dozen non-members that asked the ADA for PPE in this last go-round. And one of them was from Pennsylvania and one of them was from Nevada. And it was simply because the records haven't been updated. And so it's a constant battle to get the member or get every time there's a move, there's got to be a change. And moves aren't automatically recorded. So anyway, any help you can get for us, even if it's just a see and skate, that'll at least get the ball rolling.
So that's pretty much all I have. So we're here at the UDA office to help you, with your lists or contacts, or to get a hold of people. I can put their graduating year on there if that's helpful. So then you'll kind of know who the new members are, or the recent graduates and stuff like that. So maybe when I start sending you the list, I will include the graduating year so you can see who the newer dentists are. And you can request that list as often as you want. It's pretty easy to pull up. So that's all I have, Dr. Schmuler.
Thank you, Dottie. We appreciate you so much. And we really do need your help with information on dentists, because it's, as we did a few calls to try to help others renew their membership who'd forgotten. It was interesting to me of people who were retired or whatever, and we just had no idea. So we need to communicate and work with Dottie and Becky, and they're fabulous. We appreciate all they do for us. So thank you, Dottie. We now go to Dr. Kay Christensen, who comes to us from Minnesota.
That's right. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wasn't sure I'd be able to, but hopefully this works, and we'll join in. Apologize for my more casual appearance with the activities we're participating in here. I was asked to do a presentation about the ADA membership, ADA UDA membership, the benefits. And there are a lot of benefits. Each of you may have benefits that you think apply to you more personally than some others. And I've looked at this and I thought, well, let me present a top 10 list. And my top 10 list this week may be different than what I felt it was last week. I may have differing opinions next week. But currently, this is my top 10 list, and I hope there are some of you that can relate to some of these things and understand some of these things. Generally on the first group of them are kind of financially related. And the last part of them are more, I don't know what the word is, philosophically related. But let's go ahead and start with the number 10 reason to be a UDA ADA member.
Okay.
The financial incentives. There are many financial incentives that the ADA puts out to us. There's the travel plans and discounts. There's life insurance, disability insurance, office overhead expense. They offer programs to help refinancing student loans at good rates. And they offer a retirement program. There are many other things that the ADA offers. And first and foremost, I'd encourage you, if you're wondering what some benefits are of the ADA or UDA, go to ada.org or uda.org and go and look things up. You'll find things. The other thing, as Brent mentioned, sometimes we get emails from people. Look at your emails once in a while. Oftentimes there's some valuable information in there. And I'm going to come down to some of those things here coming up. The number 9 reason, TDSC, the Dentist Supply Company. If everybody took advantage of the opportunities of ordering through the Dentist Supply Company, who offers discounts on dental materials and equipment and supplies to dental association members. If you take advantage of that, I've spoken with several people who have saved thousands of dollars doing this. I've spoken with some people who say, well, I have so-and-so in my office, she shops all the different catalogs, and we actually get better deals than TDSC offers. Me personally, I am really not a coupon shopper. I like the ease and the simplicity of knowing I can go to one place and more than likely they're going to save me money on my supplies and equipment. And that has been the case. I've saved thousands of dollars. If there's a concern with the amount of the membership fees, it's been more than absorbed through the savings in just that one thing. So that's the TDSC, tdsc.org, the Dentist Supply Company. You can log into that, and because you're a UDA member, you can sign up and join in using that service. Number 8 reason, the UDA Action. That's a publication put out by the Utah Dental Association. There are articles and updates in that publication. There are opinions that are expressed in that publication. It's nice to see that there's another dentist who maybe has faced the same problems that you have, and how they've approached things. And there's information and updates on things that we need to be aware of with current events, amalgam separator deadlines, or things like that come up that we need to know about. And it's a great place to stay current. And I'd encourage you to read through that UDA Action. Number 7 is the ADA News, the Journal of the American Dental Association, and the ADA Morning Huddle. The Morning Huddle has been very valuable in the last few months, especially. Every morning I get this ding on my phone, I look at it and I'm seeing, okay, what are the highlights that the ADA is working on right now for me, to benefit me. And honestly, I have found some information through that information given in the ADA Morning Huddle that has helped me in my practice, particularly during this COVID time and the time that we've taken to reopen our practices and organize ourselves, looking for loans or grants or whatever financial assistance is out there. And I've appreciated those things there. There's some great articles in the ADA News. I don't read everything I get in a publication. I oftentimes will skim through. Sometimes I'll go through a thing and I'll see something that looks interesting. I'll tear it out and save it for later. But it would behoove you to at least look and see and glean the things that are available there. Number 6 reason, we talked about fees. You know, if we have officers or anyone else that wants to chime in, UDA has lowest membership fees in the nation. And it has been that way for as long as I've been a member, I believe, you know, 30, 40 years or more. And what's an example of, Val, do you know an example of a higher, like Alaska? I've heard Alaska brought up before.
Yeah, Alaska's state dues are $1,200, which is more than our ADA, UDA, and district funds combined. And so, yeah, they pay closer to $2,000 per person per year, where we are significantly less expensive
right.
than the next lowest in the nation even.
I think Nebraska has been the next lowest in the nation, and I think they're at least a couple $100 more from the last figures I saw. So anyway, it's a good bargain, and in my mind, it's a wise use of your money. And like Brent mentioned, it seems that's just something you do. It's just something you do as part of membership in a professional organization. Number 5, the UDA convention. I'm not sure what I can say more about that. When we have it, it's the best CE value on the planet. When we don't have it, it's still gonna be the best CE value on the planet, because many of the speakers that we have committed to come are recommitted to come a following year when we can meet again. And one of the things that the Utah Dental Association has been very involved with is recording CE courses for its members. And those are recorded on the UDA website, and you have access to those as a member for free CE courses. And so I would encourage everyone to look at that and take a part of that. The convention, I've always done it ever since I came back from dental school and came back to Utah. It's just been one of those things I do. If nothing else, it's been a getaway for me, just to get away from the office and to enjoy the camaraderie, meet up with people and friends I know from days gone by, and visit with them about their experiences and think, yeah, that Mrs. Smith is a really weird patient, but I guess she's not unusual. Other people have the same problem. So it's been great to interact with one another at the convention. Number 4, CQI. It's been discussed a little bit. The thing I like and appreciate about continuous quality improvement is the UDA officers come to you. The Dental Association comes to you if you will let it and receive it. And on top of that, you're getting CE credit for it. You know, they come and they share information that's valuable, that's helpful. If you have ears to hear, you will hear some great things and get some great information that will help you and assist you in your practices. Number 3, the ADA is a powerful lobby and well respected. And especially during this COVID time that we've had, I don't know how I can really explain this. You almost have to see it and be with those that participate to understand. But if you go back and read your ADA morning huddles and read about the ADA lobbying and pushing for legislation to go through and things like that, the ADA is a very respected, powerful lobby. And they get things done, and they get things done for each and every one of us to help us in our practices and in our personal lives. we find out information and get things pushed through for grants, for stimulus things to help us in getting back to work, in loans, personal, what is it, the Paycheck Protection Program, loans. They have gone to work endlessly and tirelessly, I'm sure, in extending deadlines for things. I've stressed so much in the last few months about filling out paperwork and applications. And I've jumped on top of it. I've been real diligent to do it. And it's just really bugged me. I've hated filling out these applications for one thing or another. And I find out later that the applications have been simplified. They've been extended. And I've really appreciated that. And I haven't regretted filling out those applications, going through all the paperwork of things, because it's helped me understand a little bit better about what the Dental Association is doing for me and helping ease the burden of doing things that we're not used to doing. You know, I'm not used to filling out applications, paperwork, financial things, and whatever. I'm used to treating patients, and it's helped me in being able to continue doing that without the worries. Sometimes people will, and I'm going to include this under this ADPAC part. ADPAC is the Political Action Committee in the American Dental Association, American Dental Political Action Committee. And I'm going to include this part. Many times you'll hear people say, well, I don't want to pay for membership because, you know, I see all these benefits, but you know what? I'm getting them anyway. And, you know, that is true. Non-members get a lot of benefits, but those benefits come because of a dental organization. They come because the American Dental Association represents a majority of dentists in America. If a majority of the dentists did not join the Dental Association, the association would lose their clout. You know, people realize, the lawmakers, legislators realize that the Dental Association is representing a majority of their people. So voices are heard that way. Number two, and this is probably in essence number one, because it's going to become all encompassing. The ada.org/virus. Go on that site. You'll see things that have been done during the past several months in helping dentists to reopen their practices. The ADA Return to Work Interim Guidance Toolkit. Most dentists have used that in reestablishing and reopening their practices. Non-members alike have taken advantage of that as well. COVID-19 hazard assessment, how to address COVID situations in your practice. We heard recently of a dentist in Arizona who had 2 of her staff members and a 3rd ancillary member test positive for COVID, and they went into their isolation for 2 weeks. And 2 days before their 14-day quarantine time, the dentist tested positive, and she had to begin her quarantine time. So stacked on top of quarantine with the timing of things, which is very unfortunate. But the ADA is helping us know how we need to protect ourselves, protect our families, our patients, our staff members in opening and serving and treating patients during this time. It's been interesting to know, as oftentimes people come in our practice and say, so how is this affecting you? And I said, well, you know, honestly, it's not affecting us a whole lot differently because we have always done stringent infection control practices in our office. Some things we've tweaked a little bit and we've become more aware of a little bit. We have increased things some with the recommendations of some of the barriers at the front desk and such. The biggest thing I've told the patients is it's been the arrival and receiving patients into the practice. We've spaced the appointments out, made those so We don't have patients on top of patients. And that's been the biggest difference that we've seen with our patients. Patients have been very good, very cooperative in coming back to the practice, coming back to work. And I think it's because of the organized effort that we've received the guidance for in returning to practice. The UDA has had one of the great efforts. Those first 2 months, you know, March and April, well, May as well. I don't think, you know, I wish I was back at work because UDA officers were busy. I mean, multiple times a week, we were meeting in mostly this format, discussing things with one another, but also text messages on the phone with one another, discussing things. I was busier than a church calling for me, you know, having all the meetings we were having. So the UDA has really put forth a lot of effort, excuse me, to become first in the nation. Not that they were trying to be better than everyone, but first in the nation in our efforts to return to work. And there's also been efforts, has been mentioned earlier, about personal protective equipment becoming available. That because
You mute himself?
No, I froze.
Oh, yeah. Not just our end, or, well, you not, nobody be able to hear
Might be
him.
for everybody.
Did we lose him?
It looks like he froze.
Okay, we lost you.
If he doesn't come back, we can kind of wrap up or finish some of what he was saying, because he's basically saying, you know, between the PPE and the return to work aspect, we had a lot of influence. In fact, Darren's here; he could maybe comment on that. And talking with the governor's office and various other things, dentistry was not on the radar of the state when it came to PPE, and we got on their radar, and all of a sudden they were helping us out quite a bit. So there's a lot of effort here and there to actually bring to the dentists what they needed to do to be able to return to work safely. I don't know if Kay's back or not. It looks like we've lost his last comment. I don't know if you want to comment on this, Mike. The number one top 10 reason.
That's I've been waiting to see what it was, because I hadn't looked at his slide really closely, and I thought, man, how's he going to top everything that he's done there? But it's perfect. You know, I did a little teeny thing for the U of U White Coat ceremony today to try to promote organized dentistry to those new students. And that's the bottom line. We're part of a wonderful organization that represents the profession, the public, and as well as us as individual practitioners. So good job, Kay. That was wonderful.
Sorry about cutting out there. I don't know what happened, but you know.
Oh, there you are.
Minnesota.
You're back.
Minnesota. But you know, honestly, this last part, I wanted to mention something. Being part of the, this to me is always the number one reason. Probably always will be. It's more of an internalization of the importance of being a member of an organization that represents me. And I remember as a kid, commercials of toothpaste on TV and the ADA seal of approval. And that was always recognized. That was, I always thought, from a kid on, I thought, that's important. That's a big deal. And I'm thinking now, hey, I'm part of that organization. I'm part of that organization that has the respectability and the professionalism to grant approvals to things that the public uses. And the ADA is well respected. And I hope that everyone will strive to be a good member and encourage others to do the same and be a part of the group. So sorry to take so long, but I'm glad I was able to join in with you.
Thank you. As you were off, we were talking about how remarkable your list is And it makes me very excited. We ought to print that thing and mail it out to everybody because it's right on the money. Good job.
Thanks.
I was going to say, I was going to add to that, Mike, if we could, that this is something that is district leadership. I mean, I think most of district leadership knows this, but this is the list of things you need to take to non-members or the other members and remind them of all the things that the ADA is doing. I'll be honest with you, I have seen a lot of the ADA in action over the years. I have never seen the ADA more 24/7 than I have since the middle of March.
Right.
I have gotten emails and phone calls in the middle of the night from the ADA. They are going constantly, and they have put an extreme amount of effort into dealing with this COVID, and successfully. Mike Graham in Washington, D.C. they are listening to everything he says there in Congress. And so it's definitely a good time to be a member. So.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay, Val, you're on.
I'm going to try to zip through this quickly. I think most of the districts kind of understand how the district finances operate. I sent every president a copy of where their district stood. Just to remind you, the reason we are involved, the UDA is involved in your district funds, is because the IRS has this requirement that necessitated it. Either that or you got to file your own taxes every year and everything else, which we didn't see all 15 districts managing that very well. And the funds that you get are actually a little bit that comes from paying dues. It's the smallest portion. The ADA and the state dues are significant. The district dues are anywhere from, some districts only have you paying $10 a year to others that pay closer to $75 a year. But either way, it's less than $100 a year to the district. So that's how your district funds come to you. And most of you noticed that as I sent the district funds around, they're divided up into two sections. There's the main section, which is actually your kind of annual dues for the last year or two. I tried not to include all the reserves in everything because some districts have some accumulated money from way back before 2018. And it's available to you. It's still yours. It's still the district money and everything else. But I just didn't want to get a false sense of security that you've got that much money coming in every year, because that's not the truth. So anyway, be aware those figures were both sent around to the districts. They know how much money they've got. Let's see, dues revenue amounts were established by previous district presidencies. Oh, that was the amount I was telling you, whether you feel like your district's paying too much or too little. It was established years ago, and it's kind of been a standard. And I don't know necessarily if it's anything you want to change. I mean, it's certainly not something that's probably big enough deal to try to change just for COVID purposes alone. And so we just kind of intend to leave things as they are. I just want to remind you to use your funds constructively for district purposes. My thought is, how do you want someone else spending your contribution? How do you want, and that's kind of how you ought to have in mind when it comes to how you spend it. Would you be okay if somebody else was spending your money in that manner? But basically, your district president decides how you're going to spend your funds. I hope it's not just one district president or president-elect or whatever that's deciding, but you guys as a presidency discuss it and come to a conclusion as what's the best way to do it. A debit card is issued to a district leader to manage expenditures. I think you're all aware of that. I think I've got a talk a little bit here later on I'd like to possibly have that person stay in that position to hold that debit card for a couple of years, because it's not a quick process through the bank and signatures and filling out this form and that to get that all transferred over. When a debit card is not going to work but a check is needed, then you just submit the receipts to me and we'll get that taken care of. This is where I thought I had it there somewhere. Possibly leave the debit card holder in a treasurer position for multiple years. simplifies the bank's interaction and gives experience with dealing with some of the finance. So my biggest question I had is if anyone really had any district finance questions, or any questions for that matter. And other than that, I think I am done.
Any questions from the district officers on finances? Okay, thank you, Val. So we're close here. Of course, we want to open the floor to any questions, thoughts, or ideas that you may have as district officers that we as the UDA board would need to be aware of. I just looked at our list of participants. I would like to acknowledge that we have a number of our UDA board, Darren Chamberlain, past president, Mark Taylor, and Scott Tyre, who are with us, as well as our presenters. I did see that Rodney Thornell was with us for a while as well. We appreciate them participating and for their service to the UDA. So would anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns that they would like to raise at this time? I'm not a guy to dilly-dally too much, so if you want to say something, you better hurry up and do it. Okay. There's some calendaring items. We've got CQIs coming up. We're looking forward to that. That'll be our big event. Then we'll probably have another training meeting prior to UDA convention, spring seminar, and all of those things that hopefully we'll be able to be pulled off in the spring, and we'll get back to somewhat of a normal schedule. There's your dates for those. Thank you, Val, for putting that together. I would like to reiterate that the online CE that the UDA has done over the past few months is it's beefy. There's quite a bit of CE there that we take advantage if you're in need of CE where it's hard to go to real meetings at this time. Get online. That's, again, another complimentary thing for your membership in the Utah Dental Association. Val, any final words?
I think we've covered everything. I appreciate everybody's time. I'm hoping they haven't felt this hour and a half was, I hope they feel this hour and a half was beneficial and help them to understand their responsibility to help us promote membership. And it's like united we stand, divided we fall. So the more of us there, the more we can do with our resources. So we appreciate it. We're looking forward to hopefully getting post-COVID and getting a little bit more back to meeting and normal. So let's hope. We'll try a hybrid. We'll try the hybrid for CQI.
Very good. Thank you all so much. We'll see you another time.
Thanks, everyone.
Val, thank you, Val, for organizing.
Thank you. I hope it was beneficial to everyone. Hope
I
everybody
think it was. I thought it was a good meeting. Appreciate everybody's comments and input. So we have board meeting